Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you guys are doing great today. Alright, so today is Thursday and this is the last day you're gonna have to see me in a row wearing this outfit because I have filmed every video that you've seen here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now today, Thursday. I have filmed them all on Monday. And so I did not bring extra costume changes so that you could see me in something new. So you're just gonna have to see this beautiful get up one more time, and then next video I promise I'll have something I'm wearing that is very different. But today we're going to continue along with our Super Thanks videos. Now if you are new here, you do not know what a Super Thanks is. Super Thanks is when you want to give me a little support here on the channel and you give me a tip. So I have recently become monetized. There's a few different ways that I can get paid by creating these videos. One is by you guys just watching the video like normal, and I get paid off of the ads and off of the YouTube premium subscriptions by you guys watching the videos. So I thank you for at least watching the video. But if you want to give me a little extra cash my way, then you can do what is called a Super Thanks. And that's basically when you go below on the share line of this YouTube video, you'll see 3 little dots. You click that and you will see something that says thanks. You click on it and you can leave me a comment, whether it's a beautiful, thank you for doing this video, or a question, or you can even leave stickers, I believe, and they may be animated stickers. And so you choose how much money you would like to donate to the Brad Griffey's YouTube video fund, and just shows me a little bit of love. And then I have agreed that if you give me a super thanks, I'm going to give you a super thanks. And so how do I do that? Give you a shout out on a video so the whole world knows your name and knows that you were generous here to me so that I can continue creating these videos. So I thank everybody who has given me a super thanks. Now I originally thought, oh, I can just do a little segment within my regular videos. However, some of y'all gave me some really wonderful questions, and so I thought, you know what? These would make some really great videos. And so I have chosen the ones so far that have been good questions that I think would make wonderful videos, and we are doing that this week so far. So if you would like to ask a question or even leave a comment, you can do one of those super thanks. And if one of those questions is a good video idea, then I will make it. I'll give you a shout out in the video, and you can have your very own video like I've been doing the last couple of days. So with that being said, we can reveal who did a super thanks and what this video is going to be about. Now, this is from, and some of the people put their names and some of them are like screen names. So this is not an actual person's name. So this is Heck2680, and she gave me a very lovely super thanks. So I thank you for that nice donation. That was very kind of you, and I am so grateful for it. And so this video is going to have actual edits in it, not because of that, but because the content in it, I felt like we need to show a few different things. So this will be a more edited video than the last couple of days, which is basically I just turned on the camera and talked to the camera and then shut it off and then put it on YouTube and uploaded it. This one will be a little more in depth. And so I thank Heck2680 so much for this super thanks. And her question is, this is a long one, so this is why I had to do a printout. I started writing out the other two for earlier in the week, and then I saw this one. I was like, I shouldn't write this out. Let's just print it out. So Heck2680 asks, can you make a video on sewing/finishing dresses with different types of collars? Turtleneck, tuxedo, Mandarin styles, tips and tricks. I find that my turtlenecks are always too big in the upper part of the neck. Again, I'm so appreciative of your videos. Trying to learn all the techniques is really hard with no previous sewing skills or mentor. For beginner self-taught sewers like myself, your videos have been invaluable. Well, I am so glad you have been enjoying the videos, and so many of you have been leaving wonderful comments. And I'm glad that these videos are helping you out, because when I started them, I didn't really see, I saw like people who did some videos, but they they were more like, I would say, and this is no shade, just like crafter people who maybe did sewing here and there. But I, of course, do it as a like business. And so I feel like over the last 27 years of doing this, I have come up with a lot of great techniques and tips. And so I thought, I'm not really seeing anybody who's doing it really professionally doing these videos. And so maybe I should be the first to kind of start them. And so you guys have been so kind. And, like I said, it was a little bit of a slow burn starting these videos. And I wasn't sure, like, is this something I should be doing? Am I wasting my time? Is anybody watching? But your comments really helped me get through it, because there for a while I was like questioning myself, like, is this just taking too much time? Is this a lot of editing for nothing? But now I'm starting to see a little bit kickback monetarily. It's not a lot, so nothing that I can I can buy a couple of bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits from McDonald's, as I say, on my way to work. But I can also put a little bit of the money to creating more videos. But the comments have been so sweet and kind, and have really pushed me through any negativity that I have in my brain, which happens a lot in Brad's brain. I'm able to be more negative than positive to myself, which is something I think I need to work on. But so I thank you for each and every one of those comments. But I thank Heck2680 for her generous super thanks. So today we're going to get into a video. So I think I'll probably bring you around here onto my pattern table, and I'll do a setup so that you can look down and I can kind of show you how I do my collars. There are many different ways that you can do them, but I think she's particularly asking for a high neck, which I know at first I had a little trouble with, but then I kind of figured out exactly how I could do it, and it looked good on a lot of different people, because I do a lot of dresses that, my basic made-to-order dresses that have to fit a wide variety of people, right? So if you're doing like something custom, you can fit it to somebody and do any little fixings that you need. Whereas when you're doing one of the, made-to-order where it's just a standard size, you got to make sure that it fits a wide variety of people. So I kind of like have fixed my patterns over the years to adjust for things so that I can get the best wide variety of fits on different body types. So I'll bring you over here. We can kind of go over how I do my basic neck stuff, and then I can show you how to kind of customize them to get those Mandarin collars or the Tuxedo or any of that kind of stuff. So all right, so let me bring you around to this side. All right, I thought I would do this view first so you can see my face, and we can go over some different necklines that I have here on some dresses that I had laying around my studio. And then I'll put you over top, so then I can show you some patterns and how to kind of adjust them so that you can do whatever you need for your neck needs. Now, first one, which she was basically, I think, asking about, is the high neck or a turtleneck, because she had said that it wasn't, it was too big. Sometimes they can kind of gape down like this. So this is how I have my basic turtleneck, and it basically hooks down the center back of the neck. And then I also have a version where it's high, but then people ask me, like when I have the solid mesh back, how do they get into it? I put the hooks right here on the side neck, and then you just crawl in through the shoulder. But that makes it so that you can have that nice closed back if you need. Like this one has an open back, so to do it down the center, you're either going to need to have a zipper, or you'll have to have a keyhole back or an opening in your back to do it down the center. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it to the side. Now, I normally like to do it, when I do it on the side, I like to do it on the left. And the reason why, and you can ask the person you're making it for if you're doing a custom, is that most people are right-handed, so I feel like it's easier to reach this way and do the hooks on it than it is to this direction. I don't know if it really makes a difference, but that's the reason why I normally do it on the left, but you can do whatever side. If somebody prefers it on one side, you can adjust it to that. But I have those, and then I have one that's very similar to the first one that has has a kind of a V opening here, and then the collar goes up from there, but it's basically the same, where it just hooks in the back. And this one's a little shorter than the first two. And then I have a basic neck, and I don't think she really asked this, but just so that you see it, this is basically just a scooped neck with the sleeves, and then it would hook right here in the back, but then of course you can do any kind of hooks you want, whether it's the zipper or hook down the back, or if, like on that dress I did for Gracie Gold that was so popular back in 2014 that she wore in the Olympics. It had multiple hooks down the back. I know that's not really a neck thing, but it's kind of the finishing of the neck. And then this is also a scooped neck, my standard, where it's a scoop neck, and I put the hooks here on the side, but I'm basically finishing the neck off with elastic. But I think the main thing that she was asking was how I did the high neck. So I'm going to bring you over top, and I'm going to kind of go over this. But basically, how I do this and to get a good fit is that you want to have a measurement of the neck, right? So that is what I do this off of. So if somebody has a 12-inch neck, then I'm making a 12-inch here. You might want to make it a little bit bigger because some people don't like it where it's feeling like it's choking them. So it's a little bigger. Now I have kind of figured out my sizing for each of my standard sizes, and they seem to work for a wide variety of bodies. Every once in a while I'll get somebody who's like, it's choking me, or it's too tall, or it's, you know, whatever. But most people are fine with my standard. But you just need to figure out that, especially if you're doing something custom, then you just measure their neck and then just make it slightly bigger. And then that is how it's gonna fit nice and close here. However, it may not fit closely if you are too deep here. So if your pattern is going too deep here and it's not hitting right here on your neck, then it can also kind of lean forward, because then you're having to make it maybe a little bit bigger because it's going down this way. So you want to make sure you're cutting your pattern so that it's tight here and not, you know, like when I do a scoop neck, like this dress, this is not the same, like this is cut much lower and wider here than when I'm doing a high neck. So you need to make sure that your pattern is coming in closer. And so I'll kind of go over that when we do our overhead so that I can kind of explain that a little better. But that is probably a reason if you are having something kind of gape open like this, it's probably because you're a little, you might be a little wide here, and then you're probably a little too scooped here. And so then it kind of opens up. But if you're measuring the neck here, then it should stay pretty good, even if it is slightly scooped, but then it may not, it may wrinkle here. So you want to make sure you're cutting up here. All right, I'm going to put you over top, and I'll show you my patterns, and then I can show you how to kind of adjust the neck patterns to do a Mandarin or do some other kind of designs that are easy. All right, so I'm going to put you over top, and we'll go from there. All right, hopefully this is a good view and you can see what I have going on here. All right, so this is my main pattern. This is my sleeved pattern for mesh sleeves and a high neck. So you can see this is the opening of the neck. Now I'm going to place this pattern. This is my pattern for just kind of like a scooped neck. You can see that it is wider on the side, but then it comes down, it scoops down a little more. But it's still, like when you see it on somebody, it still looks like it's kind of going around their neck. So if you're having trouble with it being too wide and it kind of gaping open the neck, which is what she, you know, was saying, that, you know, it seems too big, it's probably because you have it too wide and it's not coming up to the neck tight enough. You know, whether it's on the side or in the center or the back. So this is kind of the pattern that I have. So if you're going wider and you try to put a high neck on this, it will kind of flop down a little bit. But I have the pattern here, and then this will be my pattern for the neck. And so I figured out with at least my adult small, which is my size 5, the width of it that it needs. But this is going to be on the fold, and then it actually gets folded. So here I have, this is what it looks like out. And when I do it, I like to use my liner fabric, and then I glue it to the color that I'm using. And so basically what I do is I just flip it here like that, and then I'll zigzag down around here, and then I like to do a straight stitch across just to keep it nice and flat. Let's see if you can see here. So as you can see with this, there's a straight stitch that goes across there. Let's see, it's just folded into each other, and then I can do the hooks down the back. Now, you need to figure, basically have this be the width of the neck that I measure the neck. And then this is what this will be. And I make it just slightly bigger. And of course you have to give seam allowance for it to be folded to do your hooks. So I have probably about a 1/2 inch. So I'm adding an extra inch to it plus a little more so that it's not totally choking the person who's wearing it. But with this, this neck may be slightly bigger than this whole opening, but this is mesh. So normally with mesh, there's a lot of stretch to it. So I have it a little bit smaller, and then I just stretch the neck to the neck piece, to the mesh part when I'm sewing it together. I'll do a little zigzag just to get it in there, and then I will then serge around the edge so that you get, I serge around it so that you have a nice seam there. Now this is not on mesh, this is on a lycra, but it's still pretty similar to this opening. So if you're having any gaping, it's probably because it's too wide and it's too scooped into the front. But basically, that is how I do it. And then I just find the center of it before I put it in. And so if that's the center, you put the center to the center of where you're going, and then you just slightly stretch it so that it all matches up so that the end is going to be here, and then it goes in, and then that gives me a nice neck that sits nice and close to the neck. Now some people do not like high necks, so you have to trim it down just a little bit, and so that just depends on who's wearing it. But you can also do this like if you just want like just a tiny little inch neck piece. You can just do the same thing. This is about 2 inches. This will be about a 2-inch neck height. But if you wanted to have an inch or a 1/2 inch that just kind of goes up nicely around the edge, then you just cut it to whatever you want on that. Now, all right, this is editing Brad. I had already edited this full video together, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should show them on my sewing machine how I put it in. I was explaining to you how I'm doing it in the video that I had edited, but I thought, let's just show them the full shebang. So I have the neck piece that has been folded, and then I zigzagged around the edges here where all the seams are with a big zigzag, and then right around the top edge like I said, I like to do a straight stitch. Now this is still stretchy because there's basically 4 layers of lycra, and so it still keeps it stretchy and it doesn't really break. I mean, if you pulled it really, really hard, it probably would break, but as much as it needs to be stretched, you can't even tell that I'm stretching it, but I'm stretching it pretty good. I like doing this because it just kind of keeps the fabric all flat and even. You can take it out after you sew if you wanted to, but I like it for like when I bead, it still continues to keep everything flat and it doesn't get messed up or warped or anything. So that's up to you if you want to try the straight stitch. You can also do if you're scared, or also depending on machines. Some machines work differently, and so maybe if you do a straight stitch, it would not, it would pop, but when it's stretched, and so you need to do a zigzag. However, on my Bernina machine, it has always worked to do a straight stitch, and it still has plenty of stretch. All right, so I have the neck piece, and then I have our bodice that is all finished. It just needs the neck on it, and so I just need to place it. So I basically learned how to do this without pins, but you can of course pin it if you feel so comfortable. But I like to zigzag in first, and then I'll go in and search. I like to do the zigzag just in case something happens. I can pull out the stitching easily with a big zigzag. But basically it just gets it set in, and then I can go in and do the search. So basically what I do is I just have the seam here that we're going to put the mesh where we're going to attach everything together, and I can just put the mesh piece on top, edge to edge, and then I can take this other edge and kind of hold it there, and then I'm going to kind of start sewing a little bit just to get it started, but then I can just kind of slightly, I can just slightly pull this because it's I don't know if this makes sense, but I can just slightly pull it to stretch everything together so everything lays nice and flat. Just go right on that edge and sew it right down. So everything's perfect. And so we've just done this big zigzag to get it basically basted in. We can snip off with our snips. And then, so it's sewn in, but of course it's not going to look great if we did it that way because it's all janky. So we need to do our serge to finish it off. So I'm going to take you over to that other machine. All right, now we're at the serger, and all we have to do is just put it in and go along that edge and serge it so it looks nice and clean. Now we've got our edge. It looks all nice and pretty. So it's all clean. So let's, I'm gonna take it over here, switch you over here so that I can show you about the hooks. All right, now we can sew on the hooks. Now just to show you what this seam looks like that we just put in. As you can see there, it looks nice and neat. Now I will, when I do from the Lycra into just a straight mesh, if it's just straight mesh all the way across, I just leave it like this, and you see it just kind of lays flat on that side. So then when I go to bead it, I always make sure that I bead right up to this line, if you can see that, because there's about a 1/4 inch of where the seam comes, and then you're seeing the seam through the mesh. So make sure that if you're gonna keep it down and flat like this and you're gonna bead it, make sure you bead all the way to this edge and not to this edge. Because I've seen people who have bought my, unbeaded dresses and do the beading themselves, and they only bead to this edge, and then you see a whole 1/4 inch of darker line right there. So just to kind of continue the line, I just go right up to the edge there. Now you can also fold it back like this if you don't want it to show at all, but it makes it a little more bulky. But you can just fold it back. Now you can either do a zigzag, which is going to show, or if you want it nice and clean, you can just do a hand stitch and kind of whip stitch it down to the top layer of Lycra there. And so then it gives a nice clean look, kind of like that. But it does give a little bit bulkier. I like to have it at least, if it goes from the Lycra into all mesh around the edge here, I like to keep it where it's flat, just gives the flattest look. But I do have a style that goes up with Lycra here, kind of like a halter, and it goes into the neckline. And so when I do that, I like to fold it back, and I will whip stitch it by hand around the edge. All right, so then what I'm gonna do is I have my hooks here, as you can see, hopefully. I have hooks and I have the eyes. Now they make hook, and then eyes are where it has the curve. They also make things that are bars. But if you're just doing where it's meeting up together, you want to have the hook and the eye and then go together. The bar is good for if you're overlapping and it kind of comes and can, if that makes sense, it kind of catches. But we will be putting the two folded pieces together like that, butting them up together. So I use the size 3 because they come in multiple different sizes. I like to use a size 3. I find that it's not too big, not too small. But I get them from, I think by the gross from Waywack. I have no affiliation with them. I'm not sponsored by them, but if they would love to send me some free product, I will take it. But I get a lot of my notions from Waywack to use, but I use the number 3 because people ask me what size are you using, because I think they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, in all different sizes, and so I use the number 3, which is kind of in the middle. All right, so I have my needle here that is already threaded, and what I do is I will fold back the neck about 1/2 inch, and then I whip stitch here. Hopefully you can see this. I whip stitch here, and I'm just kind of hitting the top layer of fabric so that you're not seeing any stitching coming through to the other side. But I will just whip stitch so that this lays nice and flat. Now when I get to the edge here, as you can see, there's two pieces. So I like to kind of whip stitch it together right here. So I just kind of get the very tips of the edge on each of those. Hopefully you can see that. And I just kind of sew it together so it kind of becomes one piece and it's not looped around. Oop. All right, so once I've done that, just trim off these snips. If you haven't seen these snips, they're in the Amazon store, but they're great to just sniff off little pieces of thread that you may have. And they have like a little spring in them, so they kind of just open and you just snipping. You can check those out on my Amazon store along with other products that I use, linked below in the description. All right, so I got a hook, and then basically I'm gonna put it right here on the edge, and then you just go through. I normally go through maybe 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then I'll do the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have to go up here to the top, up here, and then I have to do about 5 loops to keep this section down. So this can take a little while to do because there's technically 4 hook and eyes closures, but there's, you have to sew on 8 pieces, so you have to do 4 of the hooks and then 4 of the eyes. And then what I do is with this one I will do hooks on each edge here, and I do one in the middle, and then I do one right at the end of the mesh right on the elastic. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You don't need to watch that, but that's basically how I close it. Once I finish, I will show you the full shebang of how it comes together and how it hooks and gives a nice, clean, professional look when you are done with your high neck. All right, now I am finished with all the hooks. So as you can see, there's 4 on this side, 2 on each side, 1 in the middle, and then 1 right here on the end of the elastic. And then we have the eyes here, which are the loops. And then when you put it together, you just snap them all in, and then it just lays so nice and clean against the neck. So of course you can do this, you can do your closures in many different ways, like snaps that go on with a machine, which would be quicker, but then you're seeing little circles on the outside. So I just like this because it's the cleanest way and look, but it takes about 15-20 minutes to do these 8 hooks. Like it's it's a little time consuming, especially when you're doing a lot. I'm currently working on a team of Synchro skaters, and they need practice dresses for a couple of their teams, and so there's 32 of them, and they all have necks like this. So I am sitting patiently sewing one by one each of these hooks, but it just gives a much better look than if you're doing those snaps or whatever closures you have that show on the outside and look a little little ready-made. This gives a little more of a custom look. So hopefully this gives you a little insight in how to create this high neck and how to close it up. All right, on with the rest of the video, whatever I was talking about. Here we go. If you want to do a Mandarin collar, because she asked about a Mandarin collar, you're basically going to take this pattern, get some paper, I'm just going to do this with a Sharpie. I normally do it with a pencil or whatnot. But let's get the edge. So basically, this is going to be our width that you would want. So a Mandarin collar, I don't know, let's see, what do I exactly want to do? Start with a pencil. So I do a line there, but it needs to be halved because this is actually folded like that. So this is I guess the length that we need, and then you've got to figure out how high you want it. So you can put in your seam allowance on this. So I'm going to do I normally do about 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then you decide how big you want it. So normally, you know, for a high neck, I have it be 2 inches, but maybe we want to do more like 1.5 inches for a Mandarin collar. And then you can make that decision. You're basically going to do that, and then Mandarin is just kind of like a curve, like this, right? But then if you're doing that, you're going to need to seam it in. So I'll seam it in with just a quarter inch. Hopefully you can see all that. So just do like that. And then what you do is you cut it out, and you'll do 2 sides, and then you seam it here, and then you can zigzag here so it's down. And then you can do a little tack here on it so that the other side, because there'll be another side that goes like that, right? You can then just do a little tack, and then you make sure that your center is hitting on the center of your neckline. So if this is where this is going to go, you know, the center of your pattern would go out from there like that, and then that gives you a nice Mandarin collar. And you can do any kind of, like, you know, shape with this. If you wanted it to go out at like a angle, you can just go there like that, and just do like a sharp line like that. Or you can go straight up like this as well. I've done these before where it's kind of split down the center like this. So we split down the center, but then you have it kind of open, and you just need to tack it. Get this out of the way. You would just need to tack it, but you could just open it so that it almost has like a little, like an opening like that. And so it kind of just sticks out, and you would just tack it down, and it kind of looks like a little shirt collar like that. And so I did one that was similar to this for a Mary Poppins this year. I'll try to put a picture in so that you can see it. But and then there was like her little bow tie was right here, and I did this in white. It, you know, you can kind of play around with the shape or, you know, the width. But, you know, if you just wanted to have a you know, just a little, like an inch wide or ½ inch or whatever you want it to be, you just make it that, and that is how you can make your necks just off of the basic high neck you have, you know. But you can do all different things. If you wanted it to be, you know, I've done it before where it kind of goes in and out, so it's high in the back but lower in the front like that. You can just cut away this piece like this. I've actually used this where I've done it in a nude, and then you can have kind of like a crisscross of gathered fabric so that it kind of comes up onto the neck. I don't even know if any of this is making sense, but that's pretty easy doing it like that. And then she also wanted why am I blanking out? Mandarin collar tuxedo. So a tuxedo is a little different because that's kind of coming down right onto the pattern. So like this is your center front of your pattern. That kind of comes down here. You're not really doing that as a collar. You're doing that more as like a design. So you would draw it, you know. If I had this here, trace it out. And this might not be the exact right base pattern to use, but I could just kind of show you. But you know, you kind of do the tuxedo style line like that. So you would have nude here in this piece, and then you may have it, you know, kind of go up like this, if that makes sense. So I would do more of a fake lapel or whatnot. I think that's what you're talking about when you say a tuxedo collar. But if you wanted it to look like I said, like the one that I showed you, the Mary Poppins, you can just kind of fold it over a little bit and do a little bow tie or whatnot, if that's what you mean. If you want that up in here, you could do that. But if you're wanting like a tuxedo collar, you kind of just fake it to give that lapel look, if that makes sense. Hopefully this makes sense. I think most of you understand what I'm talking about, but but sometimes I'm not sure if I'm explaining it just right so that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. But you basically can just take the basic collar, that high collar, and then anything that you want to adjust, you just adjust it. So if you need to round it, like for the Mandarin, or if you want, you know, when I do this open neck, I'm just taking that, you know, that would have been a high collar, and I'm just slashing it and making it, you know, go at kind of an angle there so that it's following this line of the nude, and it goes up into there. But then that just makes it nice and easy. And then just so you can see, I finish it off with hook and eyes, like that. Now this does take a little while to sew on because I'm hand sewing them. Some people do snaps, you know, where you can put it in with a snap machine and it's much easier and it just snaps down. But I like the clean look when you know, when you're closing it. See how nice and clean that looks? And so I just hand sew it down. I fold it, hand sew it down, and I put on those hook and eyes. And it makes it so much nice and clean and nice professional finish. So the hook and eyes definitely take a little while to do. But hopefully this answers the question of the necks. I mean, really you can do all different type of stuff, but you know, when you're wanting to do that tight, high neck, you need to make sure that on your pattern, it's, you know, fitting right up next to your neck and it's not scooping down too much. So I can show you again. Hopefully you can see all this, but this would be my regular scoop neck that wouldn't have a high neck, and you can just see the difference there, how much it is. It's almost probably about an inch. You know, it's a little inch wider or whatnot. But I find that like I can't just put a piece of elastic in this. I don't know, for some reason people feel like it's too high if you're putting a piece of elastic in, and they like it to be a little bit wider and scooped for the standard. But then when they're doing a high neck, it's for some reason fine that it goes right up next to the neck. But try making your neck a little tighter here in your pattern. That's probably the reason why it would gape open, you know, instead of staying nice and tight to the neck. It kind of gapes open like that. So hopefully this is helpful. And then if there's anything I didn't catch here that you have a question about, please put it in the question below, you know, and I can try to answer it. But I think I did everything that she was asking. I think she was mainly asking for the turtleneck. But really you can start with that basic turtleneck once you get that right, and then make a little adjustments, whether it's an open slash or the Mandarin, or, you know, trying to do a little more of a flipped collar. Really just start at that base and then you can adjust from there. So hopefully that answers the question. And let me switch you back around so you can see my beautiful face and we can finish this video. Hopefully this was explained correctly and you kind of understand. I will try to do some more pattern videos in the future because I know a lot of y'all have been asking about them and exactly how I'm doing things, but especially these seamless mesh sleeves, because there's a couple of different ways that you can do it, but a lot of people have trouble with it fitting correctly under the underarm. So I'm going to do a video very soon of how to do that. I'm just going to make you wait a little bit longer, but maybe if I got a super thanks, that would speed up the process, but no pressure. All right, I'm going to switch you back around so you can see my face. All right, I hope you enjoyed that video on seeing how I do my couple of different, you know, neck options for your skating costumes or dance costumes or whatever kind of costume you're doing that may need a little neck finish on it. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I so thank for the question today, for our super thanks from Heck2680 and your generous super thanks. Thank you so much. And I think this, you know, is a very helpful video to others. And so if you would like to ask me a question and have me do a video, then please, you know, feel free to do a little super thanks and I will make a video on it if I feel like it's something that would be helpful and that I haven't already gone over in a previous video. However, if you would just like to give me a super thanks and ask a question, even if it's just in a little segment in a future video, you know, feel free to do that, and I can give you a shout out. And thank you for your generosity. With that being said, we'll do the regular housekeeping, and I'm trying to like shorten this because I don't even know if people even watch this anymore because it's at the end of the video. But please like, subscribe, and comment on these videos. You know that helps me grow this community here, but then it also lets you know when I'm putting out a new video, because I normally do videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. I do the sewing tutorials or behind the scenes on Tuesdays, and then I do a start to finish costume normally on Fridays. And then, you know, there's gonna be a lot of fun stuff coming up, so you do not want to miss. So please like, subscribe, comment, but push the bell notification. When you push that bell notification, it actually alerts you when I put out a video so that you can be one of the first people to comment or watch. And then you can check out my website. So my website, bradgraphies.co. That's where I have all my custom information. And then you can see my made-to-order dresses. And then you can check out my stock website where you can buy, you know, my elastic or fabrics or whatever, so that it can ship right away. That is bradgstock.com. So I have 2 different websites. You can check me out on Instagram or on Facebook. You can just search Brad Graphies and I will come up. And you can see all the stuff that I have over there. I definitely put notifications out for things on my Instagram. So if you want to know what's going on in the Brad Graphies world, you want to make sure you follow my Instagram. And then you can check out my Amazon store. That's where I house a collection of things that I use in my everyday sewing life, that if you would like to use the same thing, you can go there, click on the link, and order it, and it gives me a little bit of kickback, so that also is a way to help me and the channel in creating these videos. And then you can also share these videos. So if you share it with a friend, or if you're in a group on Facebook or somewhere on the interwebs, share it with them if you think that they would enjoy these videos, so that I can continue to build this audience here, because it's a slow burn. You know, I'm not starting this thing and I'm getting millions of views. I'm getting like 500 views a video with like 3,000 subscribers. So I'm just slowly working my way up, trying to get more viewers and more subscribers and more likes and love, that hopefully help people who are interested in this kind of work. And then I think we're done. So hopefully you have figured out a way that you can create a beautiful neck in your costume that lays nicely against the neck, or finishes it off so that it just looks professional. Chef's kiss. With that being said, thank you so much. And I thank you so much for anybody who has given me a super thanks, and I will be giving you a shout out on a future video if you are so kind to leave one of those super thanks to support me and the channel and what I am doing here, so that I can continue creating more videos that hopefully are helpful to all of you. Or if you just like watching somebody jibber jab on, or seeing the inner workings of creating these costumes that I do here at Brad Graphies Designs. All right, with that being said, I will see you in the next video. As of the taping of this, I'm not sure if we will have a Friday video, but it's quite possible. And maybe I will even come up with something that's not a super thanks video, but something that I can quickly edit together, because I'm trying to do some quick edits this week just to kind of get out some stuff, and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled programming for next week. But I don't know if there'll be a video tomorrow, but there might possibly, so that's why you need to like, subscribe, and comment, and push the bell notification so that you know if I do put out a video. All right, I will see you in the next video, whether that's tomorrow or next week. All right, bye.